Some people become calm in emergencies before they ever learn how to feel safe. They know how to read a room, fix the mood, stay useful, and make sure nobody has to worry about them. People may call them mature, responsible, or wise beyond their years. But sometimes, what looks like maturity is really a child who had to grow up too fast. This video is about what we'll call the early adult system. It is not a diagnosis, and it is not an official clinical term. It is a gentle way to understand what can happen when a child learns too early to manage emotions, responsibility, and safety. Maybe you became the person who stays calm while everyone else falls apart. Maybe you learned how to comfort adults before anyone consistently comforted you. Maybe you were praised for being easy, independent, quiet, or strong. And maybe nobody noticed that being easy came at a cost. A child is not supposed to be the emotional manager of a room. A child is not supposed to constantly monitor whether everyone else is okay. But when the environment feels unpredictable, a child may adapt in the only way they can. They become observant. They become careful. They become helpful before they become honest about what they need. For some people, growing up too fast does not always come from an obviously chaotic home. Sometimes the home looks normal from the outside. There may be school, dinner, family photos, holidays, and ordinary routines. But inside the child, there is a quiet rule forming. Don't be too much. Don't need too much. Don't make things harder. Watch the mood before you speak. This is where the early adult system begins. The child starts to believe that safety is not something freely given. Safety becomes something earned by being good, useful, calm, and low maintenance. Over time, this can shape the way a person moves through the world. They may become very good at predicting disappointment. They may notice tiny changes in tone, facial expression, timing, and silence. They may sense tension before anyone says there is tension. This can look like emotional intelligence, and sometimes it is. But it can also be a nervous system that learned to scan for danger early. Psychology often describes related patterns through ideas like parentification, attachment patterns, emotional neglect, and hypervigilance. Parentification can happen when a child takes on adult-like emotional or practical responsibilities too soon. But not everyone who grew up too fast fits neatly into one label. Sometimes the pattern is quieter. Sometimes it is simply a child learning, again and again, that their needs are less urgent than everyone else's. One of the first signs is excessive responsibility. You do not just participate in situations. You start managing them. If two people are uncomfortable, you feel pulled to smooth it over. If someone is upset, your mind starts searching for what you did wrong. If there is a problem, you may automatically become the one who fixes it. This can make you seem reliable. But inside, it can feel like you are never truly off duty. Another sign is emotional scanning. You may walk into a room and immediately feel the temperature of the people in it. Not the physical temperature, the emotional one. Who is tense? Who is quiet in a strange way? Who seems disappointed? Who needs to be handled carefully? For a child, this kind of scanning can become a survival skill. If an adult's mood decides whether the day will be peaceful, the child learns to watch closely. Later in life, that same skill may follow them into friendships, relationships, and work. Even when nothing is wrong, their system may keep asking, "Are we safe yet?" A third sign is difficulty having needs. This one can be hard to notice because it often disguises itself as independence. You may say, "I'm fine," before you even check if you are. You may avoid asking for help until you are completely overwhelmed. You may feel guilty when someone does something kind for you. It is not because you do not appreciate care. It may be because care feels unfamiliar. If your early experience taught you that needing something led to disappointment, conflict, or being ignored, your brain may learn to avoid needing, not because needs are wrong, but because needs once felt risky. The early adult system often teaches a person to turn needs into silence. I need comfort becomes, "I'll deal with it." I need support becomes, "I don't want to bother anyone." I am hurt becomes, "It's okay." I am tired becomes, "I can keep going." And when this happens for long enough, a person may stop recognizing their own inner signals. They may not know they are angry until they suddenly shut down. They may not know they are exhausted until their body refuses to cooperate. They may not know they are lonely because they have spent years being useful instead of known. This is one of the hidden costs of growing up too fast. You can become very good at surviving. But survival is not the same as being emotionally held. A child needs more than food, shelter, and instructions. A child also needs help understanding their inner world. They need someone to notice when they are scared. Someone to say that was a lot. Someone to help them name sadness, anger, confusion, and disappointment. When that kind of emotional support is missing or inconsistent, the child may try to become their own support system. From the outside, they look strong. On the inside, they may be doing a job that was never meant for them. This can affect adult relationships in subtle ways. You may love deeply, but still feel tense while loving. You may want closeness, but feel uncomfortable when someone gets too close. You may long to be cared for, then panic when care actually arrives. Because care can create a strange question. What do I owe now? Will this person be disappointed later? Do I have to repay this immediately? For someone who grew up too fast, receiving can feel more vulnerable than giving. Giving keeps you in control. Helping gives you a role. Being needed gives you a familiar identity. But being cared for asks you to soften. And softening can feel unsafe when your system was built around staying ready. That is why some people feel more comfortable being the strong one than being the honest one. They can handle a crisis. They can hold someone's pain. They can stay composed during conflict. But saying, "I need you," may feel almost impossible. Not because they are cold. Not because they are dramatic. But because their nervous system learned that dependence can be dangerous. Another hidden effect is the fear of disappointing others. If you grew up feeling responsible for the emotional climate around you, someone else's displeasure may feel bigger than it is. A short text reply can feel like rejection. A quiet dinner can feel like danger. A change in someone's voice can send your mind searching for mistakes. You may apologize before you understand what happened. You may explain yourself too much. You may take responsibility for feelings that were never fully yours to carry. This is not weakness. It is a pattern. And patterns often begin as protection. At some point, your mind may have learned that if you could predict the shift, you could prevent the pain. If you could stay useful, you could stay connected. If you could stay low maintenance, you would not be abandoned emotionally. The problem is that a strategy built for childhood may not fit adult life. As an adult, you may no longer need to scan every room. You may no longer need to earn love by being easy. You may no longer need to treat every silence like a warning. But the body does not always update quickly. The mind can understand something before the nervous system believes it. That is why healing this pattern is not about forcing yourself to relax. It is about slowly teaching your system that the present is different from the past. One gentle place to begin is by separating responsibility from automatic over-responsibility. Responsibility is what truly belongs to you. Automatic over-responsibility is what you grab because someone might be upset. They can feel very similar in the body. Both may feel urgent. Both may feel moral. Both may tell you, do something now. But one is healthy accountability. The other is fear wearing the costume of maturity. You can begin by asking, is this mine to carry, or am I carrying it because I'm scared? That question can create a small pause. And for someone who grew up too fast, a pause is not small. A pause means you are no longer only reacting. You are choosing. Another practice is learning to express small needs before they become emergencies. Not the deepest need first. Not the most painful confession. Just small, honest sentences. I'm tired tonight. I need a little time to think. That doesn't work for me. I don't have the energy to talk about this right now. These sentences may sound simple, but for the early adult system, they can feel unfamiliar. Because they place your experience back into the room. They say, I exist here too. My comfort matters too. My limits are part of the relationship too. Another important step is noticing the body. Many people who grew up too fast became experts at bypassing themselves. The mind says, I'm fine. The shoulders say, I am bracing. The stomach says, I'm afraid. The jaw says, I am holding back. The breath says, I do not feel safe yet. Your body may tell the truth before your words can. This does not mean every body signal is a perfect message. But it does mean your body deserves attention, not just discipline. If you notice yourself rushing to fix everything, you might ask 3 quiet questions. Is this truly my responsibility? Am I trying to help, or am I trying to prevent someone from being upset with me? What would I need right now if I believed my needs were allowed? These questions do not erase the past, but they loosen the old automatic script. They create a little room between the trigger and the response. And in that room, a new self can begin to form. One who is still caring, but not self-erasing. One who is still thoughtful, but not constantly afraid. One who can love people without becoming responsible for all of their emotions. This is the difference between maturity and survival maturity. Healthy maturity gives you choice. Survival maturity gives you a job. Healthy maturity lets you rest. Survival maturity tells you rest must be earned. Healthy maturity allows closeness. Survival maturity asks what closeness will cost. If you grew up too fast, you may have been praised for the very thing that exhausted you. People may have loved how little you needed, how calm you seemed, how much you understood, how quickly you adapted. But being praised for disappearing does not mean disappearing was good for you. Sometimes the most familiar version of you is not the freest version. The goal is not to become careless. It is not to stop being kind. It is not to blame your past for everything. The goal is to stop confusing self-abandonment with goodness. You can be compassionate without becoming everyone's emotional container. You can be dependable without being endlessly available. You can be mature without being silent. You can be loving without shrinking yourself into the smallest possible space. The early adult system was not your enemy. It may have helped you survive moments when you had too little support. It may have helped you stay connected, stay safe, or stay steady. So you do not have to hate the part of you that learned to grow up quickly. That part was trying to protect you. But protection is not the same as freedom. And now, slowly, you may be allowed to learn something new. You do not have to earn care by being useful first. You do not have to prove your pain is reasonable before it deserves kindness. You do not have to wait until you collapse before you are allowed to rest. You do not have to be the adult in every room. Maybe you did grow up too fast. Maybe you became quiet, careful, responsible, and strong before you were ready. Maybe you learned to read faces when you should have been reading storybooks. Maybe you learned to hold emotions that were too heavy for a child. But that does not mean you are broken. It may mean your system adapted beautifully to something difficult. And now the work is not to become someone completely different. The work is to come back to the parts of you that had to wait. The part that wants to be held. The part that wants to be asked. The part that wants to play, rest, need, and be understood without performing strength. Being cared for is not weakness. Having needs is not being difficult. Resting is not failure. You were not born just to manage the emotional weather around you. You are allowed to have your own weather too. And maybe the softest kind of healing begins when the child who had to become an adult finally hears this. You do not have to carry everything anymore.